Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag from the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Hey, this is the Brown Sports Bag. This is James Brown goofing it up, and John Butler doing the part that we've asked him to come do. But let's talk a bit about some boys basketball. We have, first of all, Glasgow has a couple of big games this week because they play Warren East tomorrow night. That game was supposed to be played last Friday, but Warren East is in the 2A state tournament. They played that game on Friday. They ended up getting knocked out. And so Glasgow is 3-1 in the district. Their only loss was the one to Barren a couple of weeks back now in overtime, 47-45. So you can say that Glasgow's in control of their destiny to get the top seed in the district tournament. You can say the same thing about Barren County because they also only have one loss. They're 4-1. They have one game left against Glasgow. And so, if Glasgow...
I think Glasgow's 2-1, right? Don't they still have Allen, East, and Barren left?
That is correct. You're right.
Okay.
They're I guess both in control of their own destiny. And, if Glasgow wins at Warren East on Tuesday night, then that sets up a pretty big showdown on Friday with a chance to one of them to have only one loss and one to have two losses. Don't write off, though, the final game that Glasgow will play against Allen County because there's not that big of a gap this year between Allen County and the other three teams. They're much closer. Barren ended up beating them by 20 the other night, basically by 20 points the other night, pulled away in the second half. So, Barron's playing really well right now. So let's start with that. Barren last week, they didn't beat Bowling Green, but they had an impressive showing against Bowling Green last Tuesday night, I think it was. A game in which they got down pretty big and then rallied in the second half and made it look good. They played really well in the second half against Allen County on Friday, and the Trojans are just playing real well right now, John.
They are. They're playing really well. They're up to they're 9-9 after a real slow start. They went 2-1 last week. They defeated Monroe 66-44, in which they dominated the game in the second half. I think the score is like 20-19 at halftime, or something like that, 22-20, and Barren exploded in the second half against Bowling Green. 71-61 loss, but it was a 5-point game with 2 minutes to go. With Barren had the ball against Bowling Green in the fourth quarter. I thought they played really, really well against a very athletic, quick, and a tremendous 3-point shooting team in Bowling Green. Cade Hardy had 5 threes. He had 21 points. I thought he played well. Joshua Decker is playing the best basketball that he's had all year. He just had 13 points, 9 rebounds. I thought he played well, and just overall against Bowling Green showed a lot of fight, a lot of competitiveness in coming back. I thought their post play was good with Gavin Nunn and Decker in there, and I just thought overall Barren played well. And then the top off the week, one of the better games they played all year against Allen, 70-51. Gavin Nunn had 16. That's another post player. Joshua Decker had a double-double. He had 13 and 10. And Bray Bewley was probably the most aggressive that I can remember him in the last couple of years. He had a double-double. He had 16 points, 10 rebounds, but he was flying all over the court.
Yeah.
I mean, he was ultra aggressive. It was just nice to see. And Jackson Reese was who comes off the bench, and he is. I just think he's a really good player. He had at 8, and a big win for Barren over an Allen County team who has a losing record, but has been very competitive in most of their games, especially in the district. So, Barren, you're right. They finally kind of got into. It's not just got into a flow, but now you kind of see a pattern of how they want to play. Trying to get the ball inside with either to Decker or to Gavin Nunn, using their size inside, and I think that has really, really helped them.
I did see them run some of that high-low post with Decker in there with Nunn at the same time. One time I think Nunn was on the top at the around the free throw line or a little higher inbounding or inlet pass to Decker, and then I think they ran it the other way around. That's something I think you and I had talked about. I don't know if we really talked about it on air, but it was a possibility of something they could do. And them running that also looks like it opened up the shooting on the outside for Cade Hardy. Bray Bewley, as you mentioned, aggressive. but also aggressive shooting the ball, and Tate Spillman as well. Even Ben Blackburn came in the game. And
Blackburn played really well against Bowling Green.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
And then Jackson Reese getting some open shots. And so that inside work is opening up the outside shooting for him as well.
Yeah, and that's they do have, you got to take advantage of your strengths. And Gavin Nunn is 6'6", close to 6'7". There's not a lot of those guys in this district or even in this region.
Yeah.
Joshua Deckard he's every bit 6'4", 6'5", but he's strong too. He's now the leading scorer for Barren. He averages like 12 points and close to 9 rebounds a game.
Mm-hmm.
He's just he transferred from Edmonton County. Just probably took him a while to kind of get used to the system and playing with these guys and so forth. So I do think that sometimes it takes some games. And remember, they didn't have a lot of practice time together because of the length of the football season. So sometimes it kind of takes a while, not just to get in shape, but to figure out how you want to play a little bit. And Barren is playing well, and they got a game tonight against Campbellsville, which I think they should win.
Mm-hmm.
And they finish up the week with Glasgow. They play. I've gone blank who they play. They play Russellville tomorrow. It's probably another game they should win. And they finish up the week with Glasgow. So, they're 9-9 right now, and probably will be favored in at least 2 out of the 3, and maybe all 3.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Glasgow, they ended up playing only one game last week, the game against South Warren. And that was a game where I think it was tied 41-all, maybe even about midway through the third quarter. And after that, Glasgow could not make a shot. Everything was off the rim.
They ended up getting beat 25.
Yeah, South Warren just ran away with it after
78-53.
Yeah, and so it's kind of a wild finish considering it was 41-all at one point. It just went south, and I don't know, maybe. I mean, like I said, they've not played since then, so we're talking 7 days before they actually play Warren East tomorrow night. And that may be good for them though, because they got Jarek Martin back for the Barren County game on the 9th. He's played 2 games. I would guess they've not had a whole lot of practice time with him on the floor, what they want to try to accomplish. And that gives them basically a week to work on their rotations and getting maybe Jarek back into basketball playing shape after being out. And I'm curious to see what the effect of those 7 days off is for Glasgow when they play Warren East tomorrow night.
Yeah, I would prefer one game in between. To be honest with you. It's just hard to stay in condition when you're, taking off this amount of time and so forth. Glasgow's 3-12, and but they played 10 games without Jarek Martin. Now, Jarek Martin did have 12 against South Warren, so he's I think their best player. Josiah Driver and Quinn Nunley have had good numbers as well this year.
Jalen Bradley as well.
Jalen Bradley. So they do have pieces, but, eventually you got to start putting them together a little bit because it's getting late in the year.
Right.
They're 2-1 in the district, and that's the good part. And they have these 2 big games against East and Barren, and we'll see. They are more than capable of winning, of going 2-0. They could go 0-2, and they could have a split. They're a funny read when you see 3-12 next to their name. That's a lot of that is because with not having Martin.
Right.
That's a big cog of the problem. Little disappointing. They got beat by 25 by South Warren when it's in the game. They let that game kind of get away from them and so forth. So I do think I wouldn't want to play them in the first round in the district because they're that dangerous and so forth. But I do think for Glasgow's sake, they probably need to start getting on to a little bit of a mini run themselves for their own confidence and so forth. They're more than capable, but they've got to put 4 quarters together, and that's been a trouble for them all year is having a complete game and so forth.
I was just looking down their schedule because we're talking about trying to get on a run. We've got the 2 district games, this week. Then they're against Metcalfe County on the 28th. They play at Clinton County on the 31st. They host Caverna on the 4th. Then they have the other district game against Allen County Scottsville. Then it's Warren Central, the best team in the 4th region this year. Monroe County, LaRue County, Cumberland County, and Franklin Simpson. they need to get on a run, but it's probably against one of the toughest stretches of their schedule when you get right down to it.
Well, Warren Central and LaRue County are probably two teams in the top 25. Well, not probably, they are.
Yeah.
So Clinton County is at this moment still undefeated, right?
Yeah, 19-0.
19-0. So, yeah, I mean, their schedule is, it's challenging. Now, there's some winnable games on there too.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I mean, it's very, very challenging to end the year. It's not so much winning is just playing better, but I do think winning is important on some of them. You do need that confidence and so forth too. Win some of those games, maybe pull off an upset here or there.
Right.
But they do have the talent to do so. It's now putting them all together.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, we need to be able to look at these scores and not look at the South Warren game and say, well, it's tied 41-41. What happened?
Right.
It's got to be you get to the end of the game and you had a chance to win it, or you were in it with a chance, no matter what the end is. It's got to look a little more like it did at the beginning of the season when they were losing some games against solid teams.
True.
But there were a lot of them were learning how to win. Right now, they've kind of run into a stretch where they're.
Well, Barren went in overtime.
Yes, that's right. I mean, and that's, as they say, that rivalry game. You never know what's going to happen in that game. But yeah, that despite the loss, it was actually a good showing considering especially how Barron's playing at the moment.
Correct.
Meanwhile, we have Caverna, and I think they are 8-9. They've played a tougher schedule than I remember Caverna playing in a while in boys basketball. But they are also in that category of they keep losing to these good teams. They're not quite finishing these games and winning them. And at some point in time, if they want to get to where they believe they can get to this year, they're going to have to win these games because, their district is the toughest one in the 5th region.
Yeah, they're going to play a good team in first round in the district in another, month?
Yeah.
Because they're going to be they will be. They'll be in that third spot.
Right.
More than likely, they're going to be in that third spot. So they're going to be playing either a Green or a LaRue. Mm-hmm. So, you're right. They another team that's good enough. Part of their problems, both Glasgow and Caverna have reasons. I'm not calling them excuses. They have reasons. Glasgow, without Jarek Martin for much of the year, that's a reason why you're not as good as maybe you think you are. Mm-hmm. And Caverna, they went through. Now, listen, you can argue they caused their own problem, but they had suspensions after the Greene County game in which several players had to serve two at a time, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of it as well.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. They lost to Taylor County 58-55 and then lost to Pulaski County 73-66 in back-to-back days. I think Jalen Crane had 25 in one game and 26 in the other. So he's been playing up to what we expect, I think, from him. I don't know. Their problem, I think, is their defense. They don't seem to stop people, and it may just be that they basically play 5-6 guys, and they're just playing in a certain style that's conducive to scoring, but it's also going to give up a lot of points. And that's the way that goes sometimes, I guess.
Possibly.
But you also, as they say, at some point in time, you got to get a stop, right, John?
If you're good enough to score off people, you're generally good enough, quick enough to stop people.
Yeah. And that's usually the difference between the winning and the losing, especially the close games, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I mentioned the Warren Central being the best team in the 4th region. They beat Bowling Green on Friday, and that's not uncommon.
No, those teams go back and forth in regular season.
Yeah.
Bowling Green beat Central last year 3 times, then lost to them in the finals of the region.
Yeah. Coach Unseld generally has the expression of he doesn't really care about any game except for the regional final.
That's a nice luxury to have.
Yes, that's like I like this BMW better than I do a Mercedes. Mm-hmm. Oh good, you get to make a choice. So it is a luxury that he has.
It is a luxury.
Otherwise, right now, if you kind of look around the 4th region, how do you think it kind of shapes up?
They're 1-2.
Yeah,
and then you can. I would have put Greenwood third, but South Warren I think knocked them off this
Friday.
week. So still think Greenwood may be. They've played Central and Bowling Green probably better than anybody. Mm-hmm. And then after that,
I guess Clinton County, and
I guess Clinton. I don't know exactly about their schedule.
Yeah,
but 19-0 is 19-0. Mm-hmm. Okay, and Barron's now has played their way up now. Maybe you could argue that they're in that 5-6 range now.
Yeah. The thing, going back to Clinton County real quick, one thing they do have is they have good guards, and they have a couple of big guys, especially one. They're pretty effective. I don't know how that pans out, as we often see at the regional tournament when you're facing Bowling Green or Warren Central. But right now, they're clearly the best team in the 16th district, and you would expect to see them at the regional tournament, barring something shocking.
That happens all the time in that district.
It does, doesn't it? It does, doesn't it? So we'll see how it pans out. But Clinton we'll get to see closer to the end of the season because I think Barron will play them, and as I just mentioned, Glasgow plays them. So we'll see what they look like against the two.
I've seen them play. I've seen them play Glasgow, and they got a good team.
Yeah, they do. I guess we'll see if they can. What we think about them if they can make it to the regional tournament. What kind of team they really look like. All right. Anything else you can think of, John?
No. That's
all right.
Good.
It's the Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, we're going to talk a little bit about the girls' basketball, too, while we're at it. The Barren County Trojanettes have lost 2 games, and honestly, when I went back over it, they could be undefeated. They lost their first game of the season up at Greene County, and they lost one on their trip to Florida. I don't know how good that team was, but they lost that game by 8, and I think they lost by 4 to Greene County. So when you get around to it, just at 12 points, they have 2 losses. And they look really, I'm not surprised they're good at defense. The thing that has really been kind of turning around lately is they've found some people who can hit shots, and they have people who can score inside, and they have size, and they have not an individual standout player, but they do have a Shelby Bird who on occasion looks like one of the best players in the region. Especially offensively, but she's also athletic and rangy, and she can defend. Mahalia Burton is turning, she hit a couple of big shots, outside shots against Allen County on Friday night. They have people they bring off the bench who have size or ball handling or shooting. They just, I've just become really impressed with what they no matter what they do, that they just look like the second best team in the region right now. And as I looked at the results from Franklin Simpson's run at the 2A, I kind of look at some of the results and that kind of thing, and I've decided I don't know how big the gap actually is. Maybe if you slow Franklin Simpson down and you can keep them from turning you over and getting easy baskets, they're not invulnerable, I wouldn't think.
No, I think you hit most of the points right there. I do think Barron's the second best team in the region. I still put Franklin 1, but I do think the gap has gotten closer between Barron and Franklin. I thought Franklin was probably a 3-5 favorite to win the region, to be honest with you. But I do think that number has come down a little bit. Barron is very, very well rounded. They've got what makes them different, even from Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
Than most teams is they got you can put 5 out on the floor and they can all score.
Mm-hmm.
And Piper can legitimately play 8 or 9 players, and that makes them different from most teams. Even Franklin's not real deep in terms of just scorers. They have trouble scoring, to be honest with you. They've got the one superstar, but they're other than her, not real. They don't have a lot of offensive weapons. Metcalf may be the closest. Now, Metcalf's not 9 deep at all.
No.
But they've got 5 players on the floor that can score, and that's why I think Metcalf's is legitimately in probably the second or third best team. I'd put them third behind Barron. But Barron is they've been good defensively all year, but what has separated them from everybody else and what has moved them up so much is their shooting. Outside shooting, in particular, has gotten better. They put up 65 in the win against Monroe on Monday, and Barron's right now is 15-2. which Bird had 18, Atkinson 10, Gerald's had 10. Atkinson is shooting the ball better.
Mm-hmm.
She is a really good defender because how long she is. Shelby Bird is one of the best players in the region.
Mm-hmm.
But Atkinson knocking down shots, that's always a plus. Against Allen County Scottsville, they put up 69 points in an 18-point win in which Mahala Burton, freshman guard, who I think is going to be a really good player, she knocked down a couple of threes. Slagle is a heck of a shooter off the bench. And then you throw Atkinson and Elmore and Gerald's, all of them together, and they're playing with a lot of confidence right now. Now, Tuesday against Bowling Green, they only put 32 up, and that game was just a slugfest in terms of it was just played on the half court, and Bowling Green's a really good defensive team, but they really struggle scoring outside of Smiley.
Yeah.
And that game was hard to watch, to be honest with you. But outside, and Bowling Green is not the same. They lost their point guard in Wardlow, and that has completely changed their dynamics.
Yeah, they can't play in the transition
No, they
at
can't
all.
play in the transition. Now, they do have great size, but they only have maybe one score. I mean, Smiley's really their only score.
Yeah.
And Barron won 32-25 and probably played the worst game of the week. I'm quite confident. And I think part of that was just they had to get over the hump of beating Bowling Green. They hadn't beaten them for a while.
Yeah.
I think the next time, if they do play them again, I think it'll be a much different situation in terms of you just can't play half court against Bowling Green. You want that game going up and down with Wardlow out. But Barron's playing, they're 5-0 in the district. They pretty much have locked in the number 1 seed.
I think they have.
Yeah. Everybody else has at least 2 losses.
Yeah.
So they've got that part locked in and should have a good game against Campbellsville. Campbellsville comes in tonight, and Campbellsville's pretty good. They got 2 Taylor County transfers, and they can score. And I think Barron's better, to be honest with you, but I do think it could be a challenging game. We go to Russellville tomorrow. I don't think that will be. Not going to get a lot out of that game,
No.
and Glasgow on Friday. Barron is they are improving. You want to peak at the right time, and sometimes you can't control that. But as of right now, I think they've really narrowed the gap between Franklin.
Yeah. You mentioned that Bowling Green game. You could say that game was played exactly the way Bowling Green wanted it played, and Barron still won the game. And because it was ugly, it was a half-court game. Coach Head over at Bowling Green, and he's a really good coach. He knows his team cannot score points. He knows the best way they have a chance of winning is basically making it a slugfest. And that's what they did, and Barron didn't shoot the best, but they still won the game 32-25 against a team that's kind of had a psychological edge against them. I mean, they've lost to them, what was that, I think 6 or 7 times in a row, I think it was, before they won that game. And if you look back to, except for one of those 6 or 7 times, they had a chance to win every one of those games that they had lost. And so I think you nailed it, that the players out there had to get over the idea that they were playing Bowling Green and just play the game, really. Right. So that might be a key win for them in terms of knowing that they can basically beat anybody at this point on their schedule in front of them. And that game tonight, it's we got a pregame at 5:15. You can hear it on 104.7 with Jay Turner on the call. We call that WCLU Burgundy.
I'll be there.
Yep, you're going to be there. Are you doing the game with him?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So, yeah, you can hear that game tonight. But, I spend all this time talking about Barron because I'm not surprised that they are good because they've pretty much been good every year after Piper's first year there. They've been one of the best teams in the region. I am a little surprised that they've gelled as well as they have because of just a mixture of players. Sometimes, you as a coach probably have witnessed this before or dealt with this. Sometimes when you have a bunch of players, you kind of have nobody because you're trying to figure out who to play where and when, right? And I think that's part of what Piper has really done a good job at figuring out this year.
Yeah, they've got, like I said, a nice mixture. They got size that they're big enough. Even their starting group is big enough across the front line. And then off the bench you can bring in Riley Wilson and the Bragg. And Bragg's 6'1". Riley Wilson's 5'11" and so forth. So they're versatile defensively as well.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Lady Scotties, they've just hit a stretch here where they just cannot make shots. I think They shot 23% against Warren East on Friday night, I think is what it was.
Yeah, lost 59-26.
Yeah, and they've just really struggled offensively, and it looked like they were kind of turning a corner on that a couple of weeks ago. So I'm not exactly sure what has happened since then, but they're kind of in the same situation as the boys. They've got to figure out how to score. I mean,
It's easily said than done.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
they're 2-14, and even against South Warren on Tuesday, they lost 71-39.
Yeah,
and it's 26, 39 points. It's just it's tough. Now, partly what hurts Glasgow is their size.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a whole lot of size, and it's hard to shoot over size too.
Yeah,
and so the defenders they're playing against. Unless you're getting multiple turnovers and you're playing a lot in transition.
Mm-hmm.
If you can play in transition, you can get away with not having a lot of size.
Yeah.
But they're young too. One of their leading scorers now off the bench is the England kid, right?
Yeah, Reese England.
Yeah, 7th grader.
Right.
So they're very, very young. Have some experience. Some of their younger players have some experience, like Kirkpatrick and players like that.
Mm-hmm.
But and Austin is a senior.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating when you can't score. I mean, that's just that's what you want to do. You want to make shots. That's why you go out there and play. It's fun to make shots. And when you can't make shots or not making shots, it's hard to keep defending. It's hard to do all those other things too. It becomes really, really frustrating to do that. But you just got to keep working at it.
Yeah, as you mentioned, if you're not bigger than the other team, then you better be able to score in transition, which means you better be faster than the other team everywhere. And Glasgow does have some quickness that they can take advantage of, but a lot of that quickness is sophomores and younger, and maybe they're not quite there either physically or basketball knowledge-wise on how to take advantage of what they do have. So, yeah, and you're right. I mean, you've said this before, shooting cures a lot of ills. If you can make shots, if you can see them go down, it changes a lot of things. And until that starts happening for them, I mean, they're just going to be a struggle. And as you just pointed out, it's also hard to keep people focused on playing defense when you can't make a shot. I mean, it takes a real special group of players to miss shots and then turn around and play defense, nitty-gritty like
tough.
that.
It is tough.
Yeah, and they may just not be old enough to be able to have that kind of mindset.
Yeah, but they still have. Well, they got Warren East.
Yeah,
they got Warren East and Barren this week. And Barron's a really.
Well, no, they played Warren East on Friday.
That's correct.
They still have a game left against Allen County in
that's
a couple
right.
weeks.
That's it. Screwy 2A whatever situation. That's
it jacked up all the schedules.
It really did. Yeah. A side note: Bowling Green, who can't score, who we just talked about, beat Warren Central Friday, 76-3.
I saw that. You and I had this conversation not on the air, but I think maybe we should organize a mini playoff of the teams that struggle and let them just play each other.
Yeah, there are some teams out there. Glasgow's not one of them.
No.
Don't get me wrong. Glasgow's competitive and so forth, but there are some other teams that just have really, really historically struggled in the last so many years that they need to play each other more.
Yeah.
And they're not even on each other's schedule.
No, I find that strange. I mean, because you would think they would try to, especially if you're trying to rebuild a program or get some confidence, I mean, we talked about this before. If you think you have a good team, you're going to increase the intensity of that schedule. But if they're not going to be good, you need to play some teams that you think you can get some wins against.
It's not competitive.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And
which is disheartening. I mean, nobody wants to keep playing if they roll out there and get beat by 50 every time.
And I'm not talking about Glasgow is competitive.
Yeah.
Totally different. We're not even referring to that.
No.
But there's some other programs that could play each other a little bit, and I think it'd probably be good for them.
Yeah. Maybe they should set up some Saturday schedules and just play, JV varsity or freshman JV varsity, whatever. Like in volleyball where everybody plays, maybe they should just have a Saturday.
If you have enough players.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you don't.
I mean, if nothing else, I mean, you get in some work against somebody other than yourself to, some practice work. Anything else on the girls' basketball, John?
No, it's just, like I said, I think the region is starting to get clarity right now with Franklin, Barren, probably Metcalf. I think it's becoming more and more clear. Probably Warren East and Allen may have something to say about it, but the clarity is kind of getting there.
Yeah.
Sacred Heart's still the top dog in the state.
Oh, yeah.
But, another month will be district tournament time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. All right, this Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Welcome back to the Brown Sports Bag. James Brown, John Butler here. Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. So tonight is the culmination of how long have we been doing this? 3 weeks now? Since a month since the start of the college football playoffs?
No, it's been a month.
Yeah. What was the first game? December 20th or 21st, something like that? I don't remember. But a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, with a bunch of games that mostly were not worth watching.
Well, the quarterfinals were January 1st.
True.
So that's 19 days ago.
Yeah, that's way too drawn out.
Yeah, it is. It's. I think it's awesome luster, but I mean, I'm. Like I said, I'm calling Barren and Campbellsville tonight on the doubleheader, and I'm not sad. I'm missing the playoffs. I'll be honest with you.
So, how much is Ohio State going to beat Notre Dame by?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Notre Dame's good defensively. What I've seen, I don't think they're near as explosive offensively. I think if the Ohio State quarterback plays well, I do think Ohio State will win.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it'll be a blowout or not. I don't think there is a great team because I don't think there's a great quarterback that's really been in this playoff series.
Yeah.
But I do think Ohio State has the most talent. I think you'll see that in the draft this year. I think there'll be a lot of Ohio State players drafted. But I do think Notre Dame has a fighting chance because I don't think Ohio State is great in any sense. But if I had to put money down, I'd bet on Ohio State.
Yeah, I think they will.
And I don't even know how much of a favorite they are.
I don't look at. I mean, I don't gamble on anything. So I gamble on life, John. That's why I'm here.
I think they're 7.5. I think they may be a touchdown favorite.
I would guess they were at least that. Just generally speaking, because they look like a touchdown favorite team, as you mentioned, because they are more talented. I mean, they spent all this money for this football team to win this national title.
Well,
right?
that's the narrative. I think everybody does.
Everybody's
spending.
I'm sticking with the narrative, John. I like that narrative.
I don't know why they've gotten that. I mean,
is it $44 million? You think that's enough to win a national title?
I mean,
John?
everybody just throws this money out like Ohio State is the only people spending money.
Oh, no, a bunch of people spend a bunch of money.
That's exactly
it's just that they've made it a big deal themselves over the summer, which is why I think a lot of people have attached themselves to that idea that they talked about what they were doing, and that's kind of why everybody's taking liberty with it.
So they were honest.
Yeah, they were honest. They were upfront about it. They're spending this money to win a national title. So we'll see if it works out. I think that's also why a lot of people would love to see them lose to Notre Dame, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm really don't have a big interest in it. I've got some friends who are big Notre Dame fans. Scott Chapman and Coach Gardner. I know they always try to go to a game a year. So for their sake, I hope they're. I'm not going to cheer against Notre Dame anyway. I don't have any ties to Ohio State.
I guess for me, these are two programs that I just can't cheer for. So that's part of the deal.
Who can you cheer for other than Southern Miss, maybe?
I cheer for. I'd have cheered for Boise State if they'd have made it.
Okay.
Arizona State, I probably would have cheered for them just because they never do anything in college football. I don't know. Probably not Texas. They're not really my cup of tea. I guess I don't really cheer for the teams that I feel like have always been around.
Okay.
And get an inordinate amount of exposure because of their brand.
Notre Dame has a network.
Yeah, so
NBC.
I mean, look, they got their own TV station.
And Ohio State's got, they're part of the Big Ten SEC powerhouse. So these are two big dogs.
Yeah. These aren't puppies in this one.
No.
These are big dogs. But anyway, I guess that's why it doesn't interest me as much either. Meanwhile, in the NFL playoffs, if there's one rule that I think you can always learn from the playoffs, and it's generally true in football, but it just stands out in the playoffs because it definitely bites you, is don't turn over the football if you plan on winning a game.
Yeah, that seems to be the big theme right here. That's what either Jimmy Johnson or Bill Parcells often said. It's not that the plays. It's not the plays you make. It's sometimes it's what it comes down to is the amount of turnovers that you make.
Mm-hmm.
You can live without getting a first down here or there, but if you turn the ball over, it seems like in the NFL playoffs, that ultimately is what sinks you.
Yeah.
And case in point would be Detroit,
mm-hmm.
who
had 5 turnovers. I think
5 turnovers, and had just been tremendous all year. Plus had the home field advantage, and
mm-hmm. and they really didn't have an excuse because they're playing in their dome. It's not like the Ravens playing out in the weather. Or
almost kind of beat themselves in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's very disappointing for them, and to do that. But yeah, Baltimore had the 3 turnovers against Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar was really good, but he also had a big fumble that led directly to a touchdown through an interception and so forth, though at the end he brought the team back.
Yeah.
Had a 2-point conversion. I don't know what people want him to do, hand it to the guy in the end zone. It's a perfect pass, and he dropped it. Now, I wouldn't have won it. It would have tied it.
Yeah.
But it seems like turnovers was the difference in that game as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just, when it comes to these big games, even with the Rams, I thought the Rams outplayed for the most part. I think if the weather conditions were different, I think the Rams may have beaten Philadelphia, to be honest with you. Stafford was tremendous, but he made it, the fumble was a big mistake and so forth. And so, these playoff games often comes down to mistakes. The team that makes the most mistakes, whether it's big penalties or dropping a punt or interception or fumbles, oftentimes loses because the margin of error between the two teams are very small.
Well, and even to that end, sometimes the interceptions a team doesn't get also is the deciding factor. When a defensive back is given a gift and they drop it in these situations, I think if you go back over the last 2 years for the Chiefs, they've had a couple of situations like that where they literally could have lost the game if the defense had made the play at the moment, but everything keeps falling in their direction.
Well, they beat the Texans, and they block another kick. Texans miss a couple field goals, this and that, and
right.
the Texans outgained Kansas City like 400-200, but Kansas City keeps winning.
Yeah,
and that sets up a great game between Buffalo and Kansas City. Buffalo. Josh Allen he's just a great player. It's just he and Lamar and Mahomes are just 3 I think they're generational talents, to be honest with you. And you hate to throw losses. I can't stand all the talking heads. If you win, your quarterback play. If you lose, it's quarterback's fault. I hate all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's such a team game and so forth.
You know what I hate though is right now there are 3 teams in the AFC, and any of those 3 teams could be the best team in the NFC. Probably pretty easily. Right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they're all stacked in there together. And it includes 3 teams with the quarterbacks you just mentioned. You watch, look at the touchdown Patrick Mahomes threw to Travis Kelce there that basically was a ceiling touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting tackled from behind, and he just flicks the ball to Travis Kelce in the end zone.
Things are going to start you can add Washington to the mix.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels looks pretty spectacular.
He's tremendous.
Yeah.
As a rookie, just tremendous.
I would not be the least bit surprised if they play in the Super Bowl. I would not be surprised if they beat the Eagles.
Because Philadelphia's offensive line's great, and you got Barkley is playing just if they just run the ball, Jalen Hurts does not look healthy and is not playing great.
No.
But Philadelphia's good defensively, their offensive line, they just play ugly though a lot of times. But Washington and the way they've got that mojo going right now, they're more than capable of beating Philadelphia, especially when Philadelphia's just something's odd about Philadelphia. They keep winning, but they never blow out anybody, and the quarterback just doesn't seem like he's on the same page with his receivers, but they're never playing from behind.
Right.
They're always playing from ahead.
Well, and that's it. I mean, they've perfected the idea of just run the ball. Saquon Barkley is really good, and our defense is good enough that once we get ahead, we can make you do things you don't want to do.
Yeah, and then that's kind of like in the Buffalo game. It was so important for Buffalo's chances to win to get ahead.
Yeah.
And they were up 11 at halftime because then that kind of takes away. They couldn't stop Derrick Henry, but they didn't. It's harder to run the ball as much when you're behind. You're almost playing catch up. So it kind of took away some of the effectiveness of Derrick Henry away from the Ravens because they were constantly trying to catch up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's going to make. I think it's the same dynamic when the Bills and the Chiefs play this coming Sunday.
Watch and see who gets ahead.
Yeah, because whomever gets ahead definitely has an advantage. And that sounds like obviously, but for these two teams, it's very specific in that way.
Right.
And then, I mean, look, going back to the Eagles, you look at that game against the Rams. I mean, I think the Eagles probably didn't even need – it was basically the 1950s Eagles. It was like Curly Neal, Greasy Neal Eagles of the 50s. They didn't need to throw the ball. They only need to run it, especially in those conditions.
Yet they were hanging on up 6, and the Rams have the ball at the 15-yard line with about 20 seconds to go, and they have 2 downs. So they could have easily lost that too. They were up 2 touchdowns with 4 minutes to go and still almost lost the game.
Well, and what was amazing about that is they were mentioning, you mentioned Jalen Hurts not throwing the ball because, I mean, part of it is maybe he doesn't have the strongest arm and the weather was affecting him more than it was Stafford. But you kind of look at how the Rams had played the game up until the last 6 minutes where they had to try to get these touchdowns, and suddenly you realize, oh, Matt Stafford is actually still really good.
Yeah, he's very good.
Especially in these conditions where you don't think it's going to work out because for much of the game, I mean, the Rams offense wasn't really doing anything. And they were trying to run it. That didn't work at all. They had the fumble that was returned.
Fumble was huge.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was a 1-point game when that happened.
Yeah. So, it's football's always fascinating, just the way the momentum can swing around. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Commanders and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Bills and the Commanders in the Super Bowl. I'd actually be more surprised to see the Eagles in the Super Bowl right now, especially if Jalen Hurts' knee is what it looked like at the end of that game.
Well, they're probably a touchdown favorite.
Well, I'm sure they are. And if I'm a betting person, which I'm not, I'm putting some money on Jaden Daniels because he's proven to be a pretty magical player.
Yep.
Anything else from the NFL playoffs or college football that stood out to you from the weekend or going ahead?
No, but this ends it for college. Thank goodness tonight.
I agree. This is the Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, before we get out of here, we're going to mention real quick that Brody Miller signed with Georgetown College on Friday to run distances. He's a long-distance runner. He's got a senior track season left. So
you gave a great interview. It's on our
WCLU.
website.
You can check it out there.
Great interview with him.
Yeah, I talked to Brody back during the event on the square before the Barren Glasgow football game, but we didn't get a chance to record it. So I had an idea of what kind of interview it'd be, and I always kind of like that. And he's
very, very mature.
Yeah, he did a good job answering the questions.
Yeah, he joins Abby Varney's up there playing basketball.
That's right, Abby Varney and Aiden Nikens up there still playing basketball.
That's correct.
So 3 Barren County kids up there doing sports, going to become in the fall. So it was a lot of fun talking to him, and congratulations to him. I think I mentioned this last week. If you enjoy watching men's college basketball, watch SEC games. I'm not sure if there are any others that you need to watch, unless are a fan of another team. But pretty much every one of them is dynamic in some way, or at least close. And I mean the Kentucky-Alabama game from Saturday was no exception. I think the final was 102-97. Kentucky lost to Bama, but right now, they don't really stop anybody, but they do score a lot of points, that being the Wildcats.
They really can score. I mean, it's almost the exact same score as the win against Florida, except it's just they were on the opposite end of that one.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're just tremendous offensively, but, eventually that they're going to have to get better defensively. I mean, it's hard to win shootouts consistently, and when you get into a 6-game playoff in NCAA tournament, they've got to somehow figure out something. Though Alabama was sitting on a win, they'd lost at home to Ole Miss. Alabama may be the best team in the conference.
Right. Meanwhile, Louisville, they're quietly having an outstanding season, 7-1 in the ACC.
Broke into the top 25.
Yeah, and so good for them. They're just cruising right along there. WKU's playing in a one-bid league. They're 2-3. So does the regular season even matter for them, really?
Probably not.
Right.
Matters for the coach. You want to have a good record.
Yeah, right.
But in terms of getting into the tournament, no.
No, you just got to win that. You got to win that
tournament. Got to win the tournament like they did last year.
How many bids do you think the ACC can get this year?
Probably 4.
Yeah. So as long as Louisville stays on this course,
they're in right. They're in top 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely in right now.
Yeah.
Duke's got a shot to win it all.
True. I think they're up to number 2.
I think Duke, Louisville, Clemson are definitely in. Probably North Carolina, maybe Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's trying to – it's not as strong a league as it is top to bottom as it has been historically, I don't think. But the top end is starting to look like it's actually quality.
Well, Duke is as good as any team in the country.
Yeah. They are rolling right along. I mean, and to that end, I mean, Louisville only lost to them by 9. That's Louisville's only loss is that loss to Duke. So – that's looking even better for them now, which I guess is why they've cracked the top 25 as well.
Yeah, and winning 7 in a row, too.
Yeah, doesn't hurt.
Beat Clemson, who's in the top 25.
Yeah, doesn't hurt. So, I mean, it's good to see this turnaround. Very different style than we were just talking about with Kentucky. They do defend.
They do defend, and they rebound.
Yeah, and this is with, 2 of their better players not playing.
That's correct.
So, I mean, even more impressive the work being done there.
I agree.
Anything else, college basketball you can think of before we get out of here?
No, I mean, it's now you get football over with, the attention will turn to college basketball, which probably deserves, to be honest with you. It's already getting close to February.
That's very true. All right, well, this is Brown Sports Bag. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.